Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of many workshops for Hack Africa. We're joined by two great members from the Stellar Development Foundation, Anke and Justin. I'll go ahead and post kind of important links for Hack Africa, just to the Discord channel and to all the challenges that have been recently announced. And we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. So off to you guys.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for introducing us. And I'm very excited to join this session. My name is Anke, and I will present this workshop with you today. I work on community events at the Stellar Development Foundation, or SDF for short. Also, we have Justin Rice in the room.
Hello, nice to see you all. Anke is going to lead the presentation, but I'm here mostly for questions and answers.
Just one, because N has to be one for each one.
Someone is unmuted. Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, that was a little bit strange. All right, so thank you, Justin, for introducing yourself. We are very excited to prep you for this hackathon. So SDF, really short, is a nonprofit organization founded in 2014 to support the development and growth of the open source Stellar network, which is what we'll be talking about today. So let's quickly hop into the agenda. So first, we're going to kind of explain a little bit about what is Stellar. Then we're going to head into what is blockchain, kind of blockchain basics. After that, we're going to dive deep into how does Stellar actually work and what does Stellar do, the power of Stellar. And after that, we're going to talk about the challenges for Hack Africa and the resources necessary to complete these challenges. And at the very end, we'll have some questions which Justin will help answering. So first, what is Stellar? Stellar is an open source network for currencies and payments. Stellar has no owner. If anything, it's owned by the public. So the software runs across a decentralized open network and handles millions of transactions each day. Like Bitcoin or Ethereum, Stellar relies on blockchain to keep the network in sync, but the end user experience is more like cash. So Stellar is much faster, cheaper, and more energy efficient than typical blockchain-based systems. Stellar makes it possible to create, send, and trade digital representations of all forms of money, dollars, pesos, Bitcoin, you name it. So it's designed so that all the world's financial systems can work together on a single network. Let's take a closer look at how it works. Stellar is not in and of itself a consumer-facing technology. Instead, it's used by businesses, which can then offer their users a fast, efficient network for trading, saving, and spending digital money. Their users, wherever they are in the world, can submit transactions to send and exchange all kinds of assets on the network, which deliver in seconds and for a low cost, as Stellar is free to use. For builders, it's an open financial infrastructure. Anyone can access it. There is no permission or application needed. Now, before I dive into how Stellar works, let me first briefly explain what blockchain is on a high level for those who don't know yet. So before we begin, blockchain is not the same as cryptocurrency, but they're often confused with one another. It's understandable when people talk about Bitcoin, they either talk about Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, or refer to the Bitcoin network, often distinguished with a capital B. Important to understand is that blockchain and cryptocurrencies are not the same. So blockchain is a technology that enables the existence of cryptocurrencies, among other things. So a cryptocurrency is a digital asset, which is basically a medium of exchange, such as the US dollar. The main difference is that cryptocurrencies are digital, secured by blockchain, and are not issued by a government or central authority often. So cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and ETH are not the only assets that exist on blockchain. But before we do that, let's kind of take a closer look at what blockchain is. So for centuries, people have tracked information using a ledger, a simple chronological list of data, like this one on my side. Each of these entries, whether it's a payment or a trade, are called transactions. They're time-stamped and contain information unique to each transaction. So blockchain basically is a ledger like this one. So it's similar to a traditional ledger. The main difference is that instead of being controlled by a central authority, like a bank or a company or individual, the ledger is dispersed across multiple computers, which can be located all over the world and run with anyone with an internet connection. So to give you a bit more insight of how this works, let's take a look at a traditional database. So for those who aren't familiar, a database is an organized collection of data stored on a computer or server. And this is a simplified version of what most systems use. These don't need a central authority to maintain them, and that authority has absolute power over what that database contains. So when security issues arise within the authority, it's possible that the data can be altered or even deleted. Also, a database from one organization is often not interoperable with another, which leads to, in financial systems, to large delays when money has been moved from one place to another. As the world has become more connected and our interactions more digital, we've needed something more resilient, something more collaborative, and something that will work at scale but not be subject to any single political ideology, personal motive, or corporate incentive to manage our data. Invented in 2009, blockchain is an answer to that need. Blockchain is a kind of database, but different from traditional databases, as it's not maintained by a central authority. Blockchain is a method for keeping data synchronized across multiple independent stakeholders. Where a traditional database is perfect for tracking records for a single entity, blockchain allows a group of entities who might all be unrelated and who might all have an incentive to alter their shared data to agree and maintain a single data set. So in essence, blockchain is a public time-stamped series of immutable records of data, synchronized across multiple independent stakeholders. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Stellar are well-known blockchain networks. To decide which one to use depends on what you want to use it for. So Bitcoin was actually intended to be a digital gold and only issues Bitcoin. So it doesn't really work with the existing financial infrastructure. Ethereum is really good for decentralized applications because the technology doesn't scale very well. It's often not suitable for companies who send and receive a large volume of transactions. Stellar is best for cross-border and cross-currency payments and asset issuance because the technology is faster, more affordable, and scalable. So the key to these decentralized ledger technologies is achieving consensus across the network to validate transactions. And the way to do this kind of differs across different networks. Now, I'm not going to into this too deep today, but I encourage you to look into it on your own time. And I'm sure Encode Club has planned a lot of nice workshops that you can understand these different blockchain networks a bit further. So very quickly, Bitcoin and Ethereum currently use proof of work to achieve this consensus, a protocol where anonymous entities or individuals compete with each other to finish complex computations. This requires a lot of computing power, and they will receive with Bitcoin, they will receive a bit of Bitcoin as reward. So this is also called mining, a term you might be familiar with later on. So Stellar uses a federated Byzantine agreement and implements it as Stellar Consensus Protocol, or SCP for short. I know a lot of difficult terms, but if you want to look into it on your own later more, this is definitely possible. So with SCP, each known entity, which is usually a company built on Stellar that needs great network access and wants to strengthen the network, chooses which other entities to listen to when it comes to validating transactions. So the process of mining has consequences, for example, latency by adding several confirmation times, transaction cost, and with energy consumption. So as Stellar doesn't rely on mining, it can work super fast, affordable, and Stellar nodes consume much less energy while keeping everything secure. Speaking about Stellar nodes, what are nodes? So nodes are these computers that I talked about, those independent stakeholders that connect and communicate with one another to keep a common accounting ledger and to approve and ratify changes to it. So on the image on the right, all of these dots are nodes. And Stellar is open participation. So this means that anyone can spin up one of these nodes, and decentralized because they are run by independent individuals and organizations all over the globe. So the common ledger that these nodes work together on is stable, secure, and transparent. Stable because the network is spread over servers and computers all over the world. It doesn't rely on a central server, so it can be turned off. It's also secure because ledger entries are immutable. Once a transaction has been processed, no one can change the numbers or manipulate the data to their liking. This is also transparent because everyone can see the ledger and trust that the information is correct. So as I mentioned before, all of these entries and all entries on the ledger are called transactions. Now on Stellar, transactions are made of operations, which are actually functions that change the ledger. A payment, for example, is an operation. And the Stellar vernacular is a bit confusing because operations, that's what most people think of when they think of transactions. But on Stellar, you can actually bundle up to 100 operations into a single transaction. And this allows you to do some very interesting things that we won't go too much into right now. This is because most transactions consist of a single operation. So for example, each of these entries that you see on this example ledger is a single operation transaction. Transactions are time-stamped and contain unique identifying information. And on Stellar, every 3 to 5 seconds, the nodes we just talked about earlier bundle these transactions together into a set. And then they apply that set to change the state of the ledger. So let's quickly walk through that process. So it starts with a ledger, which is essentially a list of accounts and balances. Users send, wherever they are in the world, submit transactions to send and exchange assets on the network. These can be individuals with Stellar wallets or businesses making B2B payments. So they can move funds anywhere in the world and convert currencies along the way, thanks to a built-in order books, which we'll go over in a minute. These transactions are then bundled into sets, confirmed by the validating nodes, and applied to the ledger, at which point they're final and create an immutable record, and then the whole process starts over. Every entry that persists on the ledger is tied to a particular account. And accounts are really the central data structure in Stellar, and they are saved on the global ledger. Accounts hold balances, they sign transactions, and they issue assets. Account access is controlled by public-private key cryptography. So every Stellar account has a public key, which always starts with a G, and a secret key, which always starts with an S. The public key is safe to share. Other people need it to identify your account and verify that you authorize a transaction. Kind of like how people need your email address in order to send you emails. But your secret key, however, is private information that proves you own your account. It's like a password to your email account. You wouldn't share it with anyone. So you need an account to make transactions on the network. To easily create accounts on Stellar, SDF offers a handy tool called the Stellar Laboratory, where you can query the ledger, build and sign and submit transactions to the network. So I'm going to show you quickly how this looks like. 1 second, I just lost some of my notes. All right, here they are, perfect. So as you can see here, this is the Stellar Laboratory. The Stellar Laboratory is a set of tools that enables people to try out and learn about the Stellar network. The laboratory can build transactions. Let me see, build transactions here. They can sign transactions, submit transactions. You can also query the ledger and make requests to any of the Horizon endpoints, which is Stellar's REST API. So aside from the public network, this is the public network. The Stellar development also had, SDF also created a small test network, which is what you will all be building on for this hackathon as well. The test network is free to use, functions just like the main public network, and is the best place to start developing on Stellar, since it doesn't connect to any real money. Let's create, I was talking about accounts earlier, so let's create an account. Create account. So you can generate a valid key using any Stellar SDK or the Stellar Laboratory, but an account only exists on the ledger once it has a minimum required balance of 1 lumen. So on the test network, you can use, so we can generate a key pair. So on the test network, you can use a tool called FriendBot to do that for you. So all I need to do is click this and get test network lumens. Right. All right, this is successfully funded. So this was really easy. Obviously, this is the test network, and in the public network, they won't give you free lumens just like that. But this is to play around with, and as you can see, this is you have a public key right here and a secret key. So now I will copy these over and copy these to another document where I have my funded account with FriendBot. Perfect. So I don't lose track of them. See, and so now if we want to create an account on the public network, we can also do this on the test network. We'll have to build a transaction called with an operation called create account. So you can see this build transaction interface. So we have a transaction here. We can also use fee bumps, as you can see. A fee bump transaction enables any account to pay the fee for an existing transaction. These are useful for covering user fees, for example, but today we'll just focus on normal transactions. So the source account would be the public key that I just created. The source account also provides the sequence number, which tracks the order of incoming transactions. So when submitting a single transaction, you should always submit a sequence number 1 greater than the current sequence number. The source account also provides the fee. And so the per operation base fee on Stellar is currently 100 stroops, which is a fraction of a cent. They're very small for users, but they're big enough to deter bad actors from spamming the network. So here's 100. Just for simplicity, we're not going to use memos and time bounds today, but feel free to look these up in our documents. So let's try to create an account. So you just choose an operation type called create account. Oh, destination. Let me quickly create, or not create, but generate another key pair that I have not funded yet. So this key pair is not funded yet, so technically not yet an account. Let's copy this key pair. So I'm building my transaction here, and then the destination will be here. And I will give it a starting balance of, let's say, 8,000. Sign in transaction signer. Perfect. You have a transaction overview here. And then we're going to add a signer. And so the signer is the same secret key, the secret key of the source account, which we're building the transaction with. Perfect. And so I just signed this transaction. Then we can submit this, submit a transaction. You can see all kinds of code here. Takes 3 to 5 seconds. All right, I've just created this account, transaction submitted. Perfect. So you must have noticed kind of here, if we go to build transaction, like there's a lot of different operations here, right? Because I have to, so you can see this, a lot of different operations. And this kind of leads into the next question. What can you do with Stellar? So on Stellar, you can issue your own assets. Stellar allows anyone to create a redeemable, tradable representation of any asset, often called tokens, in a few simple lines of code. Token issuance is the backbone of the Stellar network. It's how Stellar connects the world's currencies, and it's what Stellar was built for. You can issue a token that represents anything from corn to gold, or even an hour of your time as a tutor. New assets are created through the payment operation. An issuing account makes a payment using the account it's issuing. And that payment actually creates the asset on the network. Though before an account can hold an asset another account issued, it has to establish something called a trust line. A trust line is an explicit opt-in to hold a particular token and specifies both asset and code and issuer. So even if I issue an asset, I still cannot send it to someone unless there is a trust line with that other account that they want to hold it. So to establish a trust line, the receiving account must submit a change trust operation. So let's quickly try this to issue an asset. So this is my source account. For every transaction, you have to fetch the next sequence number. So instead of create account, I'm going to change trust. I'm going to also have a new asset. So what should I call it? I guess I could call it hack for Hack Africa. Okay, perfect. And then the issuer account, let's say I just use my other, this account that I now funded. So funded, and this is the issuing account. Issuing, nope. All right, so let's just pretend this is the issuer. All right, so you can also, Trustline can also track liabilities and limit the amount of an asset an account can hold, though more often than not, account holders don't set that limit. They simply turn the Trustline on, which by default goes to the maximum. So I will press the set to 0 to remove the Trustline. I will sign it and then submit it. This takes 3 to 5 seconds to submit transactions. I guess I have done something. Transaction failed, invalid limit. Oh, let me try to see what I did wrong. So change trust, set limit. Maybe I have not copied this right. Oh, I have. Maybe I'll try a different one. Let's do show. Sign. Sometimes not everything it goes right, and if this happens to you, if you have happen to have an error code, we actually have a documentation that goes to the error code. I don't know, yeah, why it's so going like this. What do you think, Justin? What am I doing wrong? I've done this so many times.
That's a really good question. I think that if you open up developers.stellar.org/ I mean, this is how you'd use the documentation. You would copy that error code. You would open up developers. Just opt invalid limit. That's it.
Yeah, I'm trying to copy it, but it won't let me for some reason.
Oh, that's cool. Just if you go to the API reference documentation, so developers.stellar.org, API reference down there. And then if you just Command F once you're there on your keyboard and just type in invalid limit or invalid.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the nice thing here is that you can look at the API reference. The limit is not sufficient to hold the current balance of the trust line and still satisfy its buying liabilities. I don't know. We'd have to look at how the account was configured, but maybe just go back and instead of setting the limit at 0, go down and just set it at like 1, just see what happens.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see.
Let's see. Oh, maybe I actually need to fetch the next sequence number. This is actually a good way to show you how this would be solved.
Well, it might be.
Might be, yeah. Oh, it is submitted. Perfect. We just set a trust line of 1. All right. So now to actually go back to actually create the asset, we created just a trust line, and now it's time to use the payment operation to create the asset, to issue the asset on the ledger. So let's go back and make a payment to actually issue this asset on the ledger. And the asset was named So now instead of going for the source account here, I will use the source account of the issuing account. Perfect. I will fetch the next sequence number. And then
so what's happening now is you're making a payment from the issuing account to the what we call the distribution account, but basically to an account holder to another account, which actually is what creates the asset on the network. But before that was possible, the account that you're sending the asset to, that you're issuing the asset to, had to actually opt into holding the asset. It had to say, I agree to hold this asset. But when we did it, because of the error that we got, we actually set the limit that that account will only hold one of this particular asset. So yeah, you should set the amount to 1, which is exactly what you did. And let's see what happens.
See what happens. I'll need to change the signer. Thank you. Because I did it from the issuing account. Perfect. All right. All right, perfect. We just created the assets. So now I want to see, we have a explorer called the, let me just do this one, called the Stellar Expert, which is a ledger explorer and analytics platform for the Stellar network. Now I'm on test network and I want to see what I just made. So I put this, oh, see, we just see here that it gives us results for the account that I created earlier, and also shows the asset that I just created called show. Perfect. All right.
And so like what's cool here, right, is that Stellar Expert is an interface that is actually just looking at the blockchain itself. It's looking at the testnet version of the blockchain. But because Anke submitted those transactions, to the actual network, some third-party interface, Stellar Expert, it's not something that we built, right? It's actually built by someone who's in the Stellar ecosystem, can like essentially suck in the information from the blockchain itself and show you the transaction that just happened. And that transaction, as Anke pointed out, was like essentially the issuing of this asset show. And so it's kind of cool, right? Like what you just saw was that's how easy it is to issue an asset on the network. And the fact that you can look at it through a third-party explorer, that's what we mean when we say the blockchain is transparent. That was a permanent, immediate transaction. So that's what we mean when we say that you can't roll that there's like permanence to it. So it's pretty cool actually when you like sort of put it all together and you see that you can do these transactions via API that create the asset, and then anyone who's sort of looking at the network can verify that that asset exists, that your account holds it, and that the payment went through.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much for that explanation, Justin. That was perfect. All right, and then just to move on, just like we were able to create a custom asset on the network, Stellar makes it possible to also represent the world's currencies in the form of digital fiat tokens on one decentralized ledger where they can all interoperate freely. Examples of fiat tokens are CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies, which are currently being explored by governments and central banks around the world, and stablecoins such as USDC, a digital dollar backed one-to-one by fully reserved assets. These fiat-backed tokens are issued by regulated financial institutions, money service businesses, or fintech companies that we call anchors. Important alert, anchors. So what are they? Anchors connect the world's financial system with Stellar by serving as the on and off ramps of the Stellar network. They bridge Stellar to a local banking system and handle regulatory compliance by collecting things like KYC or know your customer information, so users can make deposits and withdrawals. Essentially, a user obtains a Stellar network asset by depositing traditional currency with an anchor using traditional rails. You can think of like this for ACH, a bank deposit, for example. So they can then hold that asset in a Stellar wallet or app, use it to make payments or trade it for other assets on the network. Anchors maintain fiat reserves equivalent to the value of asset issued tokens, so users can redeem them back to fiat at any time. So when people hold the tokens, they can treat them just like traditional money because they know that they're redeemable for traditional money in the end. There are anchor services currently operating all over the world. each of which provides real-world access point to the Stellar network. And there are more being built as we speak. So in the future, imagine this map with anchors everywhere. Stellar powers each of these entities as they address the prevalent needs in their regional markets. And together, these entities from all over the world make up an ecosystem that collectively creates an equitable access to the global financial system. Now, you made me thinking, I'm not a regulated financial institution. What can I do with Stellar? So the beauty of Stellar is that you don't have to issue an asset to build on it. You can also build an app that offers users access to the assets other organizations issue. So for the project challenge of this hackathon, bonus points go to those who can interoperate with these anchor services for digital representations of the uses of Kenyan and Tanzanian shilling, West African franc, euro, and or USD assets on the network, like USD Euro T and your USDC. You can So on Stellar, aside from issuing assets and having anchors that issue the world's currencies, you can also trade any tokens like these on the network peer-to-peer. Every token on Stellar is exchangeable with any other token on the network. And the Stellar protocol itself connects buyers and sellers. Trades between assets are possible because Stellar has a common built-in order books called the Decentralized Exchange, or DEX for short. So this means that the base Stellar protocol not only tracks balances, but also tracks and settles trades between balances in a decentralized, onerous way. So let's see quickly on Stellar Expert what this looks like. As you can see, this is a market from USD. USDC, XLM, you can see you have an order book here with buy orders, with sell orders. And this is all live. As you can see, there's recent trades happening. So it's very exciting to see this is all live and transparent on the network. Back to our presentation. The DEX doesn't only facilitate universal currency conversion, but facilitates universal currency conversion. And this is not only great for traders, it's also a powerful tool for international cross-border and cross-currency payments called path payments. So essentially, you can send and exchange money in a single atomic transaction. A path payment is a payment where an account sends one asset and have the recipient receive another through a path of offers. Since the asset sent, for example, US dollar, can be different from the asset received, for example, euro, path payments allow for simultaneous transfer and conversion of currencies. So all of the features I just explained and more allow you to build on a more connected and interoperable world that creates equitable access to the global financial system. Large enterprise companies and companies as small as single dev startups have chosen Stellar to move money and access new markets. And you can too. The way the global financial establishment is structured today, people are born into an economy just like they're born into a political system. Stellar is a way out. It lets people participate in a worldwide, stable financial network, regardless of where they live. For this hackathon, we're sponsoring $8,500 worth of lumens, or XLM, which is Stellar's native asset, in prizes. And we'll also have a project prize and a participation prize that I'll talk about in a bit. And the project challenge for is that for the 3 best projects built on Stellar to solve a real world problem and impact people's everyday lives. Bonus points go to projects who use relevant assets on the test network, like the Kenyan and Tanzanian shilling, that I talked about earlier, or they also go to if people build projects which are adaptable to environments with low or intermittent internet connectivity, and can also, if you have a project, you build a project that uses that it can be used by feature phones or low storage smartphones. We also give bonus points to those when judging. Let me show you now a few companies on Stellar that are building today to get kind of a feel like, oh, what can I actually do with Stellar? So one of the companies that is really interesting is called Uhuru Wallet, which is a WhatsApp-based wallet that allows for sending intra-African payments and also issues the South African rand. So users can send payments easily to other users in ZAR and even pay utility and phone bills using the Stellar asset. Uhuru Wallet also supports USDC, which I talked about earlier. So their users are free to hold, send, and receive funds in USDC. They're currently active in South Africa and are also looking to expand, also in the process of expanding to Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and other countries within Africa. As most of their audience often have low storage phones and are already using WhatsApp, they have decided to integrate Stellar into a WhatsApp bot, which takes up 0 extra space and still has the power of Stellar to move money. Another great company is called Leaf Global Fintech. Leaf Stellar-based wallet is designed for refugees, cross-border traders, and financially marginalized, and has been live since September 2020 in Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya. So currently, most of the users are actually refugees in Rwanda, about 55%, and they typically don't have a bank account. So these people don't longer need to carry cash, which can be dangerous, especially when crossing borders. Instead, they can keep their money securely in the Leaf wallet. With the Leaf wallet, users can save their money in multiple currencies, enjoy free leaf-to-leaf wallet transfers, and pay for goods and services. Another good example is Vibrant. Vibrant is a dollar savings app that gives people in Argentina inflation-beating tool by providing the ability to convert their savings into USDC, which is backed one-to-one with the US dollar. With Vibrant, Argentines can protect the value of their salary from devaluation and also safeguard long-term value and have goals for the future. Last but not least is Dstock. Dstock is a fintech company that uses the buy and sell orders that I showed earlier on Stellar on the Decentralized exchange to allow users to obtain stocks. Its goal is to make investing accessible and affordable for people in emerging markets like Vietnam, South Africa, through a borderless digital interface for security tokens built on the Stellar network. This creates the opportunity for emerging markets to access financial products they've never had access to before, which can improve the lives of millions of people while simultaneously creating exciting new business opportunities. So we're nearing the end of my presentation, and we understand that building a project using a technology you don't know yet can feel like a lot. But don't worry, you don't need to start from scratch. You can use various resources and get building today. Ship a product, grow your user base, iterate, improve, continue and grow your user base. All you need is some elbow grease, ingenuity, and the ability to write some basic code. To help you with this, I've collected these on a document that I've put in the Discord channel as well, I think last night. This document contains all the information and resources you need to start learning, developing on Stellar, so be sure to check that out. Also, I almost forgot, the secret participation prize likely is what you're all here for. We are awarding $50 worth of XLM to the first 50 Hack Africa teams for completing practice series 1 and 2 of Stellar Quest. Stellar Quest is a fun and gamified way to learn Stellar. Very exciting. So make sure to, and it's also just a really good if you are looking to build a project using the project challenge to kind of learn about how the tech of Stellar works, kind of what I showed you through the Stellar laboratory. It's really a good practice to get these challenges going anyway. And now you can also earn a prize for it. So yeah. It's what I call 2 birds and 1 stone. Let me quickly show you what Stellar Quest is and how to get started. So with Stellar Quest, you can learn the tech of Stellar and win awards. Go to quest.stellar.org and download the app, available on both iOS and Android. When first starting the app, you'll see these starting screens, and then you will go through onboarding. After onboarding, you're ready to quest. For every quest you complete, you can receive an awesome NFT badge. So right now, there are no live series, but the participation prize will be given to those who complete series 1 and 2 of the practice quests. You can also choose to do series 3 for the ones that are really excited about this. Series 3 is a little bit more difficult than the first 2 series, but it's definitely very exciting. So you should start with series 1, quest 1. And in this quest, you'll need to create an account, just like I showed you earlier. So it's not actually that difficult. The quest will tell you all the resources you need to complete the quest in this case, I think it's, particular pages in developer documents and the Stellar laboratory. It will also give you a set of keys. As you'll complete everything on the testnet, this account, these keys that you see, I think they're on my slide here. Yeah, there's some keys there. These are not actually tied to any real money. And your transactions on Stellar Quest, on these practice challenges, they won't make actual changes on the public network. Once you submitted the right transactions on the network using the Stellar laboratory and you did it correctly, you'll see this screen. So not what I did before with a lot of errors, but you eventually do it right. You'll see the screen that you completed the quest. And then you can claim your badge. So once claimed, you can then view your winnings on your Albedo account. And this Albedo account is not the same account as the key pair we showed earlier. And this is connected to the public network, in which you can actually receive awards. So it's super fun. And even if you don't know how to code, it's a great way to get like a good feeling of how these technologies work yourself. If you run into issues on the way, you can ask your questions in a vibrant Discord community full of Stellar questers who are more than happy to help you. And that's it. I recommend to attend our second workshop on the 7th of July at 6:30 GMT +1 on how to start developing with Stellar. You can join our SDF's ecosystem engineer, Tyler Vanderhoeven, as he walks through the Stellar SDKs and Horizon instance. Builds a simple app that uses delegated signing methods and shares some tips and tricks that make it easy to win award-winning projects on Stellar. In the meantime, visit the guide I showed you earlier and learn and visit stellar.org to learn more. Thank you. Are there any questions?
So I've been answering some questions in the chat, but obviously we can take more in the next few minutes if people want to just jump in here and start asking people. So they're saying that there is it'd be helpful to have a document with all the links. It looks like that just got pasted there. Anke put together a sort of hacker pack that Daniel just shared a link to. It's also pinned at the top of the Discord. So if you go to the Discord, you should be able to find it pretty easily. What we've tried to do there is like give you sort of a structured intro to Stellar. It will help you figure out what the different documentation, where it lives, and kind of you can find resources to understand the network both at a high level and at a very low practical level if you want to start building. Again, I urge people, if you're interested, this participation prize for doing Stellar Quest is a really good way to get your head around Stellar. I know we just threw a lot at you as kind of a fire hose, but Stellar Quest will basically say, challenge 1, create a Stellar account. Challenge 2, fund the Stellar account. Challenge 3, and like it will sort of step by step take you through the different things that you need to do to get building on Stellar. By the time you get to the end, you have a pretty robust understanding of the different transactions that you can do on Stellar and how you can start to combine them to build things. So like fundamentally, when you're building on Stellar, you can use any SDK, right? It doesn't have its own specific language like Ethereum with Solidity. Basically, Stellar has SDKs and all the modern programming language that sort of bundle the Stellar transactions into easy to use features. You can start building on that. Those SDKs in the background will basically be making calls to an API, Horizon. You don't have to spin up your own node or your own API sort of endpoints. You can just use the API endpoints that we, the Stellar Development Foundation, provide. So basically, like, you don't have to worry about operational infrastructure. You can just sort of start playing around with any of the SDKs that make it very, very easy to build stuff and to transact on Stellar. Each of those SDKs, in addition to documentation that exists like on a high level, like if you look at the sort of developer documentation that's linked to in the Hack Africa pack, you'll see that there's like there's a lot of, yeah, Anka's showing it now, but there's a lot of tutorials in here, and you can follow along with those if you want to get building. But each SDK also has its own reference documentation. And so if you want to build in JavaScript and you want to know how to build a transaction, you can easily go there and it will show you exactly what to do. And so I think in the next tutorial, this actually speaks to someone's question. In the next tutorial that we're giving, Tyler is going to walk through how to use the Stellar SDK, like how you download it, how you set up your environment, how you sort of read the documentation, and how you start deploying it to build things. And he will also show you how to use Albedo, which someone just asked about. Albedo is basically a delegated signing tool that will make it really easy as you're developing to sort of handle keys and sign transactions. And by putting those two things together, right, a basic SDK and knowledge of how to use it with Albedo, you don't have to start from scratch, as Anka mentioned. Like, you will have all of these resources, and sure, it will take a bit to just like get your head around it, but they're all really there, and the barrier for entry is just for actually starting to code. It's just a minimal real like knowledge of any modern programming language, which is pretty cool. And again, if you don't know anything, and even if you don't know how to code, you can do Stellar quests. You can go through those challenges using the Stellar Laboratory, right, which is the interface that Anka was using to issue an asset. It's a GUI that allows you to do that, or you can solve those same challenges by actually writing code. So you've got different paths. You can use the GUI to sort of understand what's going on and see and submit transactions by just click, 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 or you could pick a language, JavaScript, Python, whatever, and actually start coding out solutions to the challenges. By the time you get to the end, again, of Stellar Quests, you'll be like, okay, I see how this works. I see how to create an account. I see how to issue an asset. I see how to make a trade. I see how to make a payment. You'll even see how to do things like interact with anchor services, which again are the third parties that issue assets on the network. Correct. Stellar is different from Ethereum. It is not an EV. It's not a virtual machine with smart contracts. That's correct. Stellar is not an EVM with smart contracts. It is a network for transactions. It is tooled to make it easy to issue assets. Assets are a first-class primitive in Stellar. It makes it easy to transact on those assets. It is highly tooled for payments and for the issuance of assets. So most of the people that are using Stellar, or most of the businesses that are using Stellar, are using it to make cross-border, cross-currency payments, because it makes it really easy to basically transact, like to hold one asset and send it to someone who receives another asset. So I can send USD, you can receive, you know, South African rand, right? There are also a lot of people building on Stellar that are doing things that aren't just cross-currency, cross-border transactions. Like, I know NFTs, that's a hot topic. There's a really cool organization or business called Lightmint that has an NFT marketplace, because just as you can issue an asset on Stellar very, very easily that represents a US dollar, so you can issue an NFT very easily on Stellar. It's way easier than Ethereum. It's way, it's cheaper, it's faster. And so it is not just it is not an asset, it is not a network for smart contracts, but it is a network for the issuance and support of any asset, arbitrary assets, and allows you to transact in many, many different ways. So I think that kind of answers the question. Anybody else got anything?
Awesome. Well, I believe someone just asked another one.
One question. Okay, so how do on-off ramps work between Stellar and fiat currencies in traditional financial space? Sure. Stellar is an open network, which means anyone can build on it. Many of the companies that build on it are what we call anchors. These are essentially regulated financial institutions that create on-off ramps. So they basically accept deposits over traditional rails. So you send money via a bank account to their bank. And when they receive that deposit, they will issue you a digital version of it on the Stellar network. You can then do whatever you want with that asset on the Stellar network. You can hold it, make a payment with it, or trade it. And at the end of the day, you can also withdraw it by sending that token back to the anchor, who will then give you the actual money back in your bank account. that model works not just for people anchor Bitcoin or Ethereum, they anchor cryptocurrencies on other networks. But in this case, I'm talking about financial, like actual fiat currencies. That's how it works. If you want to build on Stellar, right? If you want to build an app on Stellar, you're not a regulated financial institution, but you want to build an app that gives your users access to those assets. There are basically two steps. When you integrate with Stellar, right? Like any user, if you say you build a wallet on Stellar, or you build a wallet into your app, whatever your app happens to be, instantly your users can access the assets that exist on the network. So if an Anchor issues a USD token, your users can access that. They can buy and sell that token on Stellar. But if you want to set it up so that they can actually, using your app, deposit and withdraw with the Anchor, in other words, facilitate in-app connection to those rails that the anchors offer, you can do that too. Anchors themselves offer APIs. And there is a link that I shared above that is sort of a demo about how to incorporate those Anchor APIs into your app. And essentially what you do is you'd say, okay, I want to interact with this USD issuer. I want to allow my users to deposit dollars in their bank account and get Stellar Network tokens. You would just make API calls to that Anchor to pass necessary information, like know your customer information. And the Anchor would sort of authorize the transaction, and then your user would send them money via traditional rails and it would show up in their wallet. So, you know, there's sort of the basic interaction with the network, which you can get just by building on Stellar and interacting with Horizon, the Stellar API. And if you want to take it to the next level and actually allow those deposits and withdrawals to happen in the app, you just find the Anchor servers and sort of use queries to interact with them. And all that stuff is documented too.
So I believe I just posted 2 more questions from Benjamin and Malcolm there in the chat as well.
Which API end or
asked a little bit
SDK
earlier.
supports USSD codes? I'm not sure what that, I don't know what that means. So I don't know. I'm happy if you can tell me what *435 # mean. This is maybe beyond my knowledge. How can I look into Uhuru's transactional process, basing it on both crypto and real currency? I'm not sure exactly what that means. If you want to find out about Uhuru, you can just, you know, they have a website that you can look up, but you could also go on Stellar Expert and, you know, you can find their asset on, I mean, maybe Anke, you can do this real quick, but remember that everything that's happening is happening on the blockchain. So if you want to see what they're doing on the network, just go get off the, yep, there we go. Anke is going to look up Uhuru, oh, there they are, ZAR, Uhuru wallet, click it. There's the asset, scroll down. You'll see all of the order books, the price history. You'll see all of the transactions that are happening on the blockchain with it. And if you want to find out more about the organization of Uhuru itself, you can scroll up. They have associated, scroll up. They have associated a website with their asset, so you can click there and it will take you to their official website. And so if you want to find out more about an asset, you can look at its on-chain activity by just looking it up, either with Stellar Expert that we're looking at is an interface, but basically it's sort of using the Horizon Stellar API, so you could also make an API call to get this information. And then you can also follow that link at the top to find out more about the organization. How is the support for banks, i.e. which banks does it work with? The way that Stellar works is that there are anchors, which are regulated financial institutions that integrate with the network. So right now, the only traditional bank that issues an asset on the network is called Bankhaus von der Heid, which is a euro. They're in Europe. They have a euro asset. Most of the time, the way that you get on or off the network is that you use organizations like this one, Uhuru, which is a fintech company, and they have a banking relationship. So they have a bank account with the bank. They accept deposits. They issue the assets. It's a fintech company in between the bank and the network that's actually issuing the assets. So you can't, you know, at the moment, there are not, you know, it's not, these issuers are more startup fintech companies that are a little bit more nimble rather than traditional banks. Probably the biggest institution that is issuing assets on Stellar is called Center, which is a consortium made from Circle and Coinbase. They issue USDC on Stellar. USDC is also available on other blockchain networks. So we don't have to get into it, but USDC like actually interoperates with other networks. So I know someone was asking about a specific bridge to Ethereum. There's not one of those, but there are assets that bridge Stellar to Ethereum, including USDC. If you start to think about it, there are clever things that you can do by taking advantage of those asset bridges, but I'll leave it to you to start to explore those in your brilliant minds. What else we got? Oh, I see. Okay, I see. USSD is something that works on feature phones. That's actually a really great question. And it is true that I don't know the answer to that. I think that this would be a great thing for someone to think about. And maybe there is some, I know that there is some work that's been done, but I actually don't know. And I encourage anyone who wants to play around with exploring USSD and feature phones to do that. I know that there's a way to do it. I can't tell you what it is right now.
And you can always ask this question too on our the Discord, and then I can link you with some other engineers from, or can ask some other engineers from our team to kind of fill you in on that information. So please ask on there, and then yeah, we'll get back to you with the knowledge that our team has.
Anke, do you have a? So I was going to ask, do you have a link to your Discord that you could post in the chat as well, in case people want to join straight there?
Yeah, the Stellar global Discord actually is a Discord. It's not our Discord, but it's a Discord run by Stellar community members. So I'll post a link in that.
Yeah, it's an awesome place to be. There's a lot of helpful people there, and there's a developers channel where developers hang out. And it's pretty active, right? It's a pretty supportive and active environment. So it's a great place to ask questions. And a lot of the organizations even that Anke mentioned when she was walking through, you know, Leaf Global, Uhuru, D-Stock, and Vibrant, you know, those are developers that are pretty accessible, the developers behind those projects. So, you know, in general, it's a pretty open, welcoming environment. And so I encourage everyone to just kind of get in there and ask questions. The more questions that people ask, the better our ecosystem gets. So don't be afraid to ask questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, Anke and Justin, for the presentation today. Looks like we are out of time. And just as a gentle reminder to everyone, the slides as well as the video recording will be posted onto our YouTube channel and Medium page by Monday here after the weekend. And also moving forward, looking into next week, we do have 3 great events coming up. We have a AMA session with the CEO of Wintermute. And we also have 2 more workshops coming up on both Wednesday and Thursday. First up on Wednesday, we have the first 1-inch workshop, and then as well on Thursday, we have the sushi workshop. And I believe George did just paste the links to all those to the Eventbrite pages as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys there as well. And hope you guys enjoyed this video, and have a great rest of your day, evening, or night, wherever you might be located.
Thank you so much. And for all unanswered questions, please let us know in the Discord chat, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.